Let's make a Christmas quilt. We're going to use 10-inch blocks. We're going to offset every other one by a 5-inch block. Okay, my friends, and we have brought a couple of strips over to the cutting board, and we're going to go ahead and trim off 5 inches of opposite sides on opposite rows. That way none of our seams are going to line up. And we use our ruler. We make sure our fingers are back away from it, and we go ahead and cut it. And then when we take the other row and keep doing the same thing, one right side up, one wrong side up, so we get the rows all in order. And we're just lining up our ruler, making sure our fingers are way back. We're holding it steady and using the rotary cutter, just simply going across, sliding across, and going on to the next piece, the next row. And as you've probably noticed, we are using safety pins on each row to show which row we have. That way, when we have them all organized, we keep them in order and we don't get out of alignment.
We lay the top down facing the next row, and then we pin at the seams, making sure that one side goes all one direction and the other side goes the other. But you do not have a seam directly behind this one. Your seam is in the midway over here. So you just have to check, make sure it's going right, and pin. There you go.
In other words, let's go ahead and look at the other side, and we are just locking down the seams to go correctly this way and that way, so all the seams are laying correctly when we sew across them.
That's correct. Now we're ready to take this first row and sew across it.
All right, so let's take those 2 first rows over to the sewing machine. Okay, so today we're working on the Husqvarna Viking. We're going to go ahead and be sewing up our rows. We've changed our stitch width to length to a 3. Of course, we're doing stitching, straight stitch, so there is no width on that. Okay. And we're going to be starting on our first row. We've got our first pin about a 1/2 inch in. Now these are queen size strips that go across a queen size quilt. So that is why we've got the pins in there, because it's a very long piece that we're sewing together. We want to make sure all of our seams are laying straight and that our fabric doesn't torque or pull on us, because again, we're working with a very long length. And we're just slow and steady wins the race, making sure both of our fabrics, right sides together, are laying perfectly straight. And we're pulling out our needles as we get there, making sure to hold down and keep our seams the correct direction. Readjusting the quilt, laying in our lap, double checking the seam is upright or down flat, whichever way it's supposed to be. And again, this is our queen size Christmas quilt. We are sewing it together here after Christmas because we did pick up a bunch of fabrics over the Christmas holiday. And we're putting them all together in 10-inch blocks. We've got another one coming up, much more intricate, that we'll have a tutorial on in the future. So if you don't want to miss a single tutorial, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, I'm glad you're here with me today and hope you're enjoying. Sewing is easy and fun, and very rewarding. The feeling of accomplishment.
this is just a little taller because that block was a little bit longer. So we want to make sure we keep the proper spacing it should have.
So if we haven't cut our blocks exactly that 10 by 10, we could find ourselves extra glad that we have the pens to keep us on track.
Remember, always remove your pins. Don't run over them with your machine. Running over a pin is what makes a lot of the needles in the sewing machine break. And you do not want it to pop and fly up in your face.
Not to mention, we're paying, what, $3 to $5 per needle now.
They are getting expensive.
And it is important to change your needle. I used to tell everyone after every one large project, like one large quilt, queen quilt, or one king quilt. And now I'm trying to stretch my needles out to 2 quilts before I get a new one. But I am using the Dola needles a lot with my junk journals, even with my leather craft, using the stronger needles, even when they're past peak for quilting. As you can see, this is a very long strip because we are working on a queen. So again, we are going through quite a few of these 10-inch blocks, starting and ending every other row with a 5-inch block on one side or the other to offset our seams. So I am very, very excited. We're going to go ahead and sew a couple more of these rows and then come back and show you how our progress is going. Okay, so we've brought our rows over to the iron. We're going to give them a quick press, making sure our seams are all the right direction and that we've ironed it, or that we've sewn them laying down properly. And that way, when we do the next row, they're not turned halfway under. And we're ironing on the back side, and that way we're making sure that our seams are all properly behaving as we go. And I like to pop it with a little bit of steam. That just makes my elbow grease, if you will, go a little bit quicker, and you don't have to iron quite as long. Okay, and now we've ironed down all the seams. We flip that puppy over and go ahead and hit it again with a hot iron with a little bit of steam in it, making sure that we're crisp and ready for our next step. And our next step is making more rows and then lining these up on those rows. And after we have about 3 rows together, we're going to go ahead and slip down, do 3 rows together, and then 3 rows, and then we'll be combining them all. And that's just to lessen the bulk in our lap as we sew. Okay, so we are coming right along on our Christmas quilt. We have our first 3 rows perfectly sewn together with that beautiful offset, so none of our seams are matching up, so I'm really excited about that. And now we have just brought back from the iron from pressing the next 2 rows completely together. No seams match. I'm loving that. And then we're going to pin these together. But first, We have laid over 2 of the bottom rows face to face, offsetting that seam by 5 inches. We're going to go ahead and pin at every single seam, front and back. And then we'll do the last 2 rows, and then excitement, excitement. We're going to be putting those 2 bottom doubles together. We're going to be putting the 2 together with the 3, and then we're going to put them all together, and we will have our Christmas quilt. And my friends, I think what we are going to do is come back and show you on the long arm how we do it. We're not going to have a border on this quilt. We're going to jump straight over and do it with our binding to pull it all in. We could use blue, but since it's Christmas, we always want to lean towards that red or green. But we're going to come back and audition that in a future video when we have it on the long arm or getting ready to get off the long arm, so we can make that final process. And thanks for joining me again today. I hope you have enjoyed and picked up a couple of tips and tricks. Pinning it makes things so much easier, and pressing it between each row that you do makes it so much easier. And that way we keep all of our seams happy and going the correct direction. See you real soon.